Welcome back to another episode of Health Invest TV. I'm joined today by Dr Chris Hart, who's the founder and clinical director of ASX-listed company Oventus. Thank you for joining me, Chris.
Great, thanks Jane, good to be here.
Yeah, it's a pleasure. So you're here this week for the biotech, for the medtech showcase actually. And what better place to be talking about sleep apnea than the world's biggest sleep apnea market, which is the United States. So let's just start with a bit of a refresher on what Oventus is doing and where you sit in terms of the sleep apnea market.
Sure, so I mean it's a fairly mature market, and as you said, US is the biggest part of that market, 55% of the world market, multi-billion-dollar market in fact. And sleep apnea, as many people may be aware, is where we stop breathing or slow down breathing during our sleep. The most common treatments for sleep apnea are face masks that pump air in, such as this one here, attached to the face with basically a blower attached to that. And then there are other treatments that are just mouth guards that bring the jaw forward. Within that market, the mouth guards, everyone likes to use them because they're pretty inoffensive, but they're not really efficacious enough. And the pumps work, we know they work, but not many people want to use them. And so there's a gap in the market there where there are many patients outside of care. In fact, the American Sleep Association estimates about 80% of patients are outside of care.
Right.
And so what we're trying to do is to make the mouth guards more efficacious, and we're doing that using our O2 vent airway technology and incorporating that into mouth guards. So our core technology is an airway management platform. And at the same time, we can use that technology to deliver CPAP without a mask and at very low pressures. So the impediments to seek treatment and the reasons for abandonment are generally people not wanting to use the mask for pressure and mask-related reasons.
Right, so the issue is that when the mask is on, there is air that gets pushed into the mask to try and keep the airways open, and people find that hard to tolerate, is that right?
Exactly, so high pressures and the straps, claustrophobia and dryness of the airways.
Yeah.
So one of the main reasons patients can't tolerate CPAP is because they might have reduced nasal airflow or nasal congestion. And in that instance, the pressures have to go up and they may revert to breathing through their mouth. And when that happens, the pressure runs out of the mouth and the airway collapses. Right. From there, they have to go into a full face mask, which is higher pressure, even more claustrophobic. And this is the reason why 50% of patients abandon treatment at 1 year and as many as 85% at the end of 2 years.
Right.
The fallback treatment is then to bring the jaw forward with a mouth guard. The primary site of obstruction is only about 20% of times caused by the tongue. So the rest of those obstructions in the airway can be caused higher up in the soft palate, and nasal congestion can contribute to that, and also the side or walls of the throat can be sucked in. And it's because of the negative pressure, when we breathe in, it sucks that airway shut.
Okay. So your device that you've developed, and I know you've got a few different products in the range which have been built for different sorts of patient preferences, but just explain to us maybe, and I know you've got one here, so perhaps just maybe show us how the airway works, because it's a very simple concept, quite ingenious I think actually, because the issue, as what you've just described there, is often sleep apneics find it hard to breathe through their nose because their noses are blocked, so they don't have that ability to bring air through the nose, so they then revert to either getting a mask that pushes air into their mouths or to opening their mouth, which becomes a problem. So talk to us about what you've developed here and why it can sort of be a good solution.
So for those patients where they might revert to mouth breathing, or they can't get enough air through the nose, or they're having to use too much pressure to open up the airways internally, what we've done is we've developed a three-dimensional airway, and this is it here. And in a mouth guard, it sits within the mouth guard, so the lips can sit around that ductbill there. The air can enter here, and it goes through this enclosed pathway, and it enters straight into the back of the throat. So we've gone below the nose, below the soft palate and around the tongue. And what we've seen in clinical trials is that this airway, allowing the air to travel into the back of the throat, is having very similar effects physiologically to pumping it in through a mask. And in fact, the reduction in the collapsibility was identical in some clinical trial data we published early last year. Right. And that's been a key breakthrough. So at the same time then, what that means is the clinical data shows that including this airway into a mouthguard that brings the jaw forward makes it between 30 and 50% more efficacious. So we're improving the outcome for those patients who are wearing oral appliances. And just over 50% of patients get a dramatic improvement. And that relates to bypassing this nose and the soft palate collapse, and also reducing the negative pressures and the collapsibility. So this is the key technology for us. It's a platform technology. We can incorporate this airway into any oral appliance design, our competitors' designs, but they can't, because we have very deep IP protection on this airway and the technology around it. But almost all technology relating to mouthguards in general have lapsed, or the IP's lapsed.
Right, okay.
So we can go and put our airway into our competitors' devices, but they can't do the same thing.
Okay.
In terms of the CPAP interface, we've shown also in clinical trials that this device will reduce the pressure requirements by 2/3, so a 66% reduction. And at the same time, instead of having to use a full face mask to control the mouth breathing for those patients that can't use nasal pillows, we have this little valve here. And what that valve does is it allows patients to breathe through this device airway while simultaneously delivering nasal CPAP. So we're eliminating the need for a full face mask, we're getting rid of the straps, and we're reducing the pressures by 2/3.
Okay, so that particular product that you're talking about isn't yet being sold into the market, but it's under development. I know you've got the connector piece here, so it might be worth...
Sure.
Sorry if I've interrupted your train of
No,
thought.
that's okay.
But,
so we do have 3 mouthguards with this airway technology in market in the US.
Yeah.
We've just launched with a global distributor, Modern Dental, which we can cover off on later in the conversation. So this particular device is a temporary device that patients can trial before they buy an expensive device. It will be in market around the end of first quarter in the US this year. And then in the second half of the year, we will be bringing this PAP connection. So this is the connection that we can attach to the front of this mouthguard to deliver CPAP at ultra low pressures and without the mask and straps. And instead of having the full face mask, we can deliver PAP and breathe through this device airway at the same time, so the patient doesn't get waterboarded with air. There's not that feeling of claustrophobia.
All right, so just to sort of repeat what I think you've just told us. So basically, for moderate to severe sleep apneics, that's probably where this connector device would come in?
Yeah, I think so, probably into the more severe range. So what we've also shown in clinical trials, that because we're increasing the efficacy of the oral appliance, we're treating patients that are much more severe than we would ordinarily treat with a mouthguard.
Right.
So looking at the data, up to about 85% of patients will be able to be treated just with the mouthguard.
Oh, right.
For those that require a puff of air to stabilise the airway, then yeah, we can do that without a mask, and we just deliver it through these nasal pillows instead of the full face mask and
at very low pressure.
Yeah.
Okay.
And interestingly, this here is reimbursed every 6 months under existing codes. So if we're a patient that's trialled CPAP and failed, which is, there's 80% of patients out of care, the DME distributor or the sleep therapist or the sleep physician or the home care company can now try another interface. And that interface will be available in the sleep channel. And they can trial this first with CPAP, and at the same time, at no extra cost, they can remove the PAP if they want to and trial oral appliance.
Right.
And so I think many patients will find that they get a very nice result just with the oral appliance, but if they need some positive air support, then they can receive that as well.
I've looked at some of the testimonials from patients that have used just the oral device, and I think what strikes me as quite unique about it, I guess, is that they can just take it travelling with them, so they don't have to carry around this big bulky bag of cables and tubes and things like that, and a machine to pump that air pressure through. So perhaps if you're a heavy CPAP user and you do use this connection device, then if you need to be more mobile, then you could perhaps just take the oral appliance with you. Is that a likely
scenario?
Absolutely.
And that's one of the indications for this technology. Is someone that travels a lot that needs the support while they're travelling but can't take a CPAP, particularly in the Australian environment, fly in, fly out workers, or people that are camping and travelling a lot, and people who are travelling internationally a lot. Instead of only having one piece of hand luggage left after you bring your vacuum cleaner, you can pop this in your pocket and you can go back to 2 pieces of hand luggage. And as I said many times, this is getting a very good result, very similar to CPAP. And I think that's a huge advantage for those patients that travel a lot. It's also great for those patients that are outside of care. So I would say to a patient, if you're using CPAP, great. If not, then we can help you accommodate to that treatment fairly readily. And if you have failed CPAP, then we can trial an oral appliance for you as well. And this oral appliance, on the data we have, appears to be more efficacious than other oral appliances out there.
Okay, excellent. So 2017 was a pretty big year for you. Let's just cover off some of the highlights of the year, and then we're going to talk about what's coming a bit more.
Okay, so our clinical evidence is really starting to gain momentum. We had our first paper published in the Journal of Dental Sleep Medicine, which was on our original mono device. We then released data sets around the airway technology, validating it further in Boston at Sleep 2017, World Sleep in Prague, and at the Australasian Sleep Association, 4 separate data sets. And so now we have those data sets across 50 patients, and it's all saying the same thing or heading in the same direction, showing that the airway technology incorporated into an oral appliance or used as a CPAP interface is having a dramatic benefit for at least half of patients. And that relates to those patients with the increased nasal resistance or multiple levels of collapse in their airway that would ordinarily require high pressures and full face masks for CPAP treatment, or that would not get a good enough result just bringing the jaw forward with a mouth guard alone.
Right.
So that was really significant for us, and that will drive adoption into 2018. We completed 2 full clinical trials with a further 70 patients that will be analysed now and released by mid-year 2018 as well, looking for peer review on them. In terms of our go-to-market, we negotiated a global distribution agreement with Modern Dental. So Modern Dental are the largest manufacturer and distributor of custom-made dental prosthetics in the world. So for the dental channel, the custom-made oral appliance, that's a very important thing for us, that we can now have access to 350,000 dentists globally that we didn't have access to before, with very well-developed logistics and distribution networks and hubs, and very sophisticated sales and marketing teams on the ground in Australasia, in Europe, and in the US. We're launching with them at the moment, so a dual purpose to this visit is not just to present at JP Morgan Health, but also to further discussions with those distributors and start to launch in the US market at the moment.
Terrific.
If we also look at the progress in terms of the corporate structure, we've strengthened our balance sheet with 2 capital raisings. So we go into 2018 with a very strong balance sheet and at least 2 years of runway. And we're starting to generate some sales now with a view to growing sales calendar year 2018 to get cash positive in calendar year 2019. So it's been a big year. We've also finalised, or very close to finalising, development of our temporary device, which is this one here, and our CPAP interface. So that allows us in 2018 to launch into the sleep channel as well. So a lot of progress made, clinical evidence, a strong balance sheet, distribution set up for the dental network, and starting to forge into the sleep channel as well.
It certainly was a big year for you.
Yeah, look, it was a very busy year, but we achieved a lot, and we've really laid the groundwork and set the foundations now for 2018, which will really be a pivotal year for us.
Great. So we'll talk about that in a sec. But before we get to that, so we're here in San Francisco. You're presenting later today at the Biotech Showcase. The MedTech Showcase. What is the reason for you to attend a conference like that? Is it speaking to investors? Is it partnering? I know you've got other purposes to the visit, but what's your main objective?
Oh, look, it's both. So we want to share our story with the investors on the world stage, and this is obviously the biggest conference in the world of this type. So we're really excited to be here and presenting our story very shortly. And additionally, we're exploring partnering opportunities for our sleep channel technology. And I think through 2018, that'll be the next stage of growth and development for us. So looking to share our story with investors, consolidate our sales and marketing through the dental channel, and at the same time starting to engage sleep channels to partner on the distribution and possibly licensing of our PAP connectivity.
Okay, terrific. All right, so just wrapping up, because I've taken up a lot of your time, 2018, give us a quick look forward. If investors were to look out for sort of, 2 or 3 main touch points throughout the year to see that you're going, moving in the right direction, what should they be looking for?
I think clinical evidence will be pretty important because that will drive adoption of the oral appliance and the CPAP interface. And as I said, we completed data collection on 2 further trials. We'll be analysing them this quarter, first quarter 2018, looking for peer review second and third quarter calendar year 2018. Additionally then, ramping up of sales through our dental channel distributors. So we would expect to see some growing sales in the second quarter of calendar year 2018, and then through third and fourth quarters, some acceleration in those sales as well. We'd be looking to launch into the European market in that dental channel around second to third quarter this year, and at the same time bringing to market in the second half of calendar year 2018 our sleep channel products, so the CPAP interface and the temporary device, and then looking for some partnering arrangements towards the end of calendar year 2018. So a very big year for us. I think we're moving from being an R&D based company towards becoming a cash flow company. And I don't think we'll get to cash positive this year, but we'll be growing revenues and reducing costs. All of our clinical trial work is more or less complete. Our product development is finalising. We're now starting to move towards revenue growth, and so calendar year 2019 we should be able to get to that point where we're out of cash burn. But this year will really be a pivotal year in terms of that transition.
Great, and just to reaffirm, so most of these products that we've got here are actually already on the market. So you've got patients using them. You're not just sort of in clinical stage. The clinical trials that you're doing are really more to build that body of evidence around the product efficacy, but you currently have patients that are using the products. You've got some revenue that's building, so it's not just it's not an early stage play. You're moving through that commercialisation path
we
already.
have 3 products in market in the US. We have 3 more coming to market this year. We've sold around about 2,000 devices to patients already, mostly in the Australian market. And so these clinical trials are really to drive adoption and to help educate dentists and sleep physicians as to what the benefit of this technology is. Because this is really an innovative product. It's probably, without overstating it, one of the only major innovations in the space in decades. So we've had for decades now pumping air in and dragging the jaw forward. And this concept of allowing the patient to breathe, bypassing the obstructions, that's shown to have a very similar effect to pumping it in and being more effective than just drawing the jaw forward. I think that's a really unique innovation, and there's a large subset of patients, and it's more than 50% that are getting a dramatic benefit of that. And so if you look at that clinical data combined with these distribution channels, and then later in 2018 some partnering arrangements, having access to what is a $3 to $4 billion a year market with a significant and durable competitive advantage over 50% of that market, with some significant partners for distribution, growing clinical evidence, I think that combination will drive a lot of value for us through calendar year 2018.
That is a fairly stunning summary to end with, Dr. Hart. So we might leave it there. Thanks very much for joining me.
Good on you. Thanks very much, Jane. Appreciate it.